The concept of public service seems to have assumed a completely new dimension in Nigeria. What with the citizens now making greater demands for accountability from their representatives in government and the legislature? Well, what has the response to this demand been from the politicians? The 2023 elections, according to analysts, has been an eye-opener and a game changer in many ways for everyone that genuinely has a stake in the Nigerian project. And as the new year beckons, what will be the state of the social contract between the government and the governed in Nigeria? For some focus on this matter, we're now being joined from Kaduna by Senator Shehu Sani, a former national legislator and one-time aspirant for governor in Kaduna State. Senator Sani is also a well-known advocate for good governance and human rights activist. Good to have you on Newsday, Senator. All right, sir. So when we talk about...
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for having me.
All right, very good. So when we talk about public service, how has Nigeria fared over time when it comes to people's interest, as it were?
Well, it is, first of all, thank you for having me in your program once again. Well, in an ideal situation, when people find themselves in the position of authority or power, the first priority is to serve the people. But in this country is something else. When you are elected into office, before then you have an agenda or manifesto or programs you want to implement. And you are expected that when you are in that office to see that those things you put on paper are put into practice. And by putting into practice, you touch lives, you advance the society, and everyone make progress by the kind of leadership and service you offer. But if we see public service as an opportunity for people to amass wealth, to exercise irrelevant influences, and to dominate the seat of power without making any impact, this is where it's going to lead us to. So I think that it is time that we tell ourselves the home truth. That leadership is a very serious business. And whoever finds himself in that position, he owes it a duty to ensure that he leaves the seat better than the way he made it in terms of improving on the lives of people and keeping to the promises which he or she made before assuming that office.
Well, I'd like to bring things a little closer to home. You know, things are so tough right now in Nigeria, and the president keeps asking us for patience, saying that what we're experiencing can be likened to labor pains just before one has a very beautiful baby. But I'm wondering if, you know, the presidency and leaders, if they've shown great leadership in cutting down the cost of governance and also empathizing with the people on what they're going through presently at the moment.
Well, to the knowledge of everyone, Nigeria's democracy is 24-year-old. We have passed through series of government with programs and policies. And it is a historical fact that many of these programs, policies, ended up without not being implemented. So over the years, Nigerians have developed a habit of distrusting their government, of seeing government as simply a platform or an institution for some people to enrich themselves. So they have been used to being disappointed, they have been used to being let down, they have been used to unfulfilled promises. And when you have a citizenry that have over the years been battered, been bruised, been disappointed by a set of leaders who made promises, and it is not unusual that whoever emerges a leader will be given a very little room to prove that he is different from those leaders he took over power from. In the last 8 years, in 2015, we have had a government that have made a lot of promises of implementing change, of changing Nigeria, of making things better for everyone, of criticizing and condemning those who have been in office from 1999 to 2015. What have we seen in the last 8 years? We have seen our economy destroyed. We have seen the treasury looted. We have seen skyrocketing security challenges. We have seen the loss of confidence between the governed and the government. We have seen how leaders have made fake promises and failed the country. So, and it is still the same party. So for the new president, he will not have the privilege of a very lengthy period of assessment and wait from the Nigerians that have been disappointed for the fact that this is where we find ourselves. It is important for everyone to realize that the nation was seriously destroyed, battered, and the government that has left power has failed Nigerians. Now, he has come into power with some policies and programs which in fact which is factual and natural that it will come with pains. But he should know that these are people that have been bruised, that have been disappointed, and that have made sacrifices in the past that led them to nowhere. So the period, the window which he has to make sure that those pains come to an end and people start seeing the fruit of it is very little. This is a nation that have been promises all sorts of things which never come to fruition. So for him, is to make sure that he set both short-term and long-term goal. Short-term goal is to ease the pains of Nigerians and also to prove that sacrifices is not only for the downtrodden, the masses, and the have-not in society, but those at the upper level. If people start seeing those on the highest spectrum of society are making sacrifices and are dedicated, serious, and patriotic, they will say, okay, this is for all of us. But where you see the budget of a country, governors, states, and even at the federal level, some allocations are made that does not justify the sacrifices which people have been told to do. People will naturally raise questions. Cutting the cost of governance is very important. And also sacrifice on those on the side of power is also very important. And the president has to, because impression matters, the president has to demonstrate. The leadership has to demonstrate. Those in the position of authority has to demonstrate. The governors, the senators. When I was in the National Assembly, it's a fact that cars or vehicles were shared to members of the National Assembly, and even me and everyone there are collected. But we are in a special period now where people are finding it difficult to pay their house rent, to educate their children, to even feed themselves. The subsidy has been withdrawn. Poverty has skyrocketed to a certain level. Then this sacrifice by those in the position of leadership should even be more than those who are at the lower strata of power. And then if this is not done, and then he has very little time for people to now say that now we know that this is simply another things which we have been used to, just like in the past. This sacrifice will lead us to nowhere, and then he will start seeing people in the street. And that is why he, with his programs and his policies, you have a very little window to implement it, and so that this suffering will come to an end. When it comes to the issue of alleviating the suffering of people, they should take it serious. It's not like before, where they said 25 million people have been transferred cash, which nobody sees anything. Trader money, all those things here, which happened in the past, it has not done anything. This is a special period in the history of the country. He has made a bold and courageous decision of removing subsidy. The suffering, the pains are enormous. They're huge in the lives of our people. And he has to do it. Make sure that the suffering is alleviated and leaders show sacrifice, commitment, and patriotism, so that we will, at the end of the day, see the fruit of all this sweat and pains that were occasioned after the removal of the subsidy.
Indeed, Senator Sani. Interesting you should mention the word sacrifice when it comes to the political class delivering on their promises. And of course, you also talked about the leadership being a serious business. Now, in that vein, is the current electoral process, despite its flaws, sustainable in producing enduring governance in Nigeria, having the right people to serve public interest in the long run, you think?
Well, you see, leadership is a very important and one of the most important pillars of a nation. If you have a good leader, he can lead you to prosperity, to growth, and to the future in peace and unity. If you have a bad leader, he will destroy the country and either leave you where you are or pull you backwards. All the countries that you see that have succeeded in the world, whether in the Western world or Asia, these were all development and economies that were driven by visionary leaders. Leaders who don't think of themselves, they think of others. Leaders who don't think of today, they think of tomorrow. So they come up with visions, policies and programs they implement, and then today. The Dubai you see, the South Korea you see, the Japan you see, the Thailand you see, the Indonesia and Malaysia were all leadership-driven development after a long time. These were third world nations that used to be like us. But they had leaders who had vision, who made sacrifices, who dedicated themselves to the future of their country. And today, these are the countries we look up to, or we go to, or we envy. And now, in this country, we need this kind of leadership that has the vision, that is determined to lead us through. But how do leaders emerge? You can't get credible leaders in a system that is highly corrupt. A system where you have primary elections where millions of naira are being shared to party delegates to elect leaders. How can you get good leaders from that kind of platform? A system where people, the masses have to line up and they have been shared chicken noodles, spaghetti, and 500 naira notes to elect leaders. How do you get leaders? A system where people now do not have confidence in the judiciary, because even opposition where they won or the ruling party, you don't go to court and now think that the facts you produce or you present will lead you to victory. So when you have this kind of society, you know that we need a leader, a leadership, and a system that will reset this country and move us to where we need to be. What happened is that this present leadership has inherited a government, a system where even if it's from the same party, but it's the different political thinking. See what happened to the ministries under the Buhari administration. See what happened to the central bank. See how public funds were shared among so-called loyalists and political appointees. See how we had a government where people have been appointed and reappointed, even their tenure has elapsed. This is where we come from. So it is incumbent on the person in a position of authority to keep aside political differences, ethnic and religious consideration, to appoint capable and competent hands that will give this country the direction, that will lead this country to the direction that it should be, and that will free us from all those shackles that have pinned us down against our own future. So this is what we need. And when you talk of electoral reform, it's very important. The problem is not the election, it's the way we do it. We'll all find a way to circumvent what... I can remember, there was a time they said, when you introduce data capturing machine, all problems will be solved. The problem are not solved. If you introduce beavers, all problems will be solved. It wasn't solved. If you introduce IREB, all problems of election manipulation will be solved. Now you reach a point where you ask, what can we actually do to have an election that is free, fair, credible, and transparent, that will emerge leaders that we deserve?
Very important
These are the issues
question.
that we need to ask our country. Nobody's going to solve the problem of our country. We are the ones to do it ourselves.
Very well said. Former national lawmaker, Senator Shehu Sani, it's always a pleasure to have you on Newsday. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.